Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Honor, and I am here today with fellow librarians Lisa Palmer and Tess Greinock. Lisa is the Institutional Repository Librarian here at the Lamar Suter Library of UMass Chan, and Tess and I are your Research Data and Scholarly Communications Librarians. We are so glad that you could join us for this seminar on sharing your research using the eScholarship at UMass Chan Repository. This recording is being shared along with a copy of the slides being used and are available with all of the other recordings of our seminar series.
Thank you, Leah. Hi, everyone. At the end of today's session, we hope that you will understand what eScholarship at UMass Chan is, describe how sharing your scholarship in the repository benefits you. We hope you'll know how to create an account, understand how to submit your research, and understand what resources are available if you need assistance. To that end, I'm going to take you on a short tour of the repository. Here's specifically what we'll cover: eScholarship's aims and scopes, the benefit, how to search, create an account, and deposit materials, and where to find help. eScholarship at UMass Chan is a digital repository for the medical school's research and scholarship. Our goal is to collect, organize, disseminate, and showcase UMass Chan achievements by archiving the journal articles, posters, presentations, data sets, preprints, all those sorts of materials produced by our faculty, researchers, staff, and students. The library manages eScholarship on behalf of the UMass Chan community. Here are some fun facts about eScholarship. We launched it in 2006. As of last week, it included almost 26,000 items. And also as of last week, the all-time download count of items in the repository is approaching 4 million downloads since we launched it, which is amazing. Thank you to all of our authors. You can find a link to eScholarship on the library's website, library.umassmed.edu, under the online resources menu. And the direct link for bookmarking is repository.escholarship.umassmed.edu. So I encourage you to try the link and check it out. For the next few slides, I'll talk a bit about the benefits of using eScholarship to share your research. First of all, eScholarship is free for you to participate and archive your materials. The library pays for the cost of the software for the benefit of the UMass Chan community. And in accordance with our goal to disseminate and showcase UMass Chan scholarship to a global audience, no account or sign-in is required to search or download from most collections in the repository. Disseminating your work in eScholarship exposes it to Google Scholar, and other search engines, and helps to maximize readership and impact, for example, citations of your scholarship. This slide is showing a Google Scholar search for the words doctor-patient cultural differences. The first citation listed is for a document in eScholarship called Culture, Language, and the Doctor-Patient Relationship. This illustrates how documents in the repository are discovered through search engines, and that the PDF can often be downloaded directly from Google Scholar. Another benefit is that usage statistics on downloads and views are available. The repository displays usage data for each item. This is the usage data for that same paper, Culture, Language, and the Doctor-Patient Relationship. To see the usage statistics, you would scroll to the Show Statistical Information button for this item in the repository at the bottom of the display. The image on the right has charts and tables showing all-time usage and total usage per month. It also tracks usage by country and city. This item averages more than 100 downloads a month and has almost 29,000 total downloads all time, which is great. The image on the left is a chart showing how online attention data for an item is available in eScholarship. This item has been mentioned in one news outlet, referenced on a Wikipedia page, and has been bookmarked by 464 readers on Mendeley. This data is integrated from a service called allmetric.com that many publishers use. Other alternative metrics that are tracked are mentions in social media and blogs. So more recent articles will have Twitter mentions, for example. This article on the example is from 2002. And clicking on the See More Details link provides more information. So these usage statistics altogether provide you with some understanding of the reach and the influence of your research that complements citation data. Another benefit is that DOIs and Creative Commons licenses are available. This slide shows a dissertation record. The grad school requires that all UMass Chan's theses and dissertations be submitted. For items like these that are originally posted in the repository, we register a DOI or digital object identifier. DOIs are permanent, unique identifiers assigned to publications, data, and other scholarly products that make it easier for them to be discovered, cited, and credited. The DOI for this thesis is highlighted on the slide. Altmetric.com is using DOIs to find online attention, so make sure to include the DOI when you cite your research or post it to a website. Also highlighted on the slide is the link to the Creative Commons license for this thesis. When you deposit an item in eScholarship that you own the copyright for, you have the option of selecting a license to indicate how you would like your materials to be used. A license preserves your copyright while also granting the public permission to reuse your work in certain ways. And the eScholarship submission form walks you through the process of selecting a license to make it easier. So how do Creative Commons licenses work? They answer this question for the public. What can I do with this work? The licenses are listed on the slide from most to least permissive. The public domain dedication allows creators to give up their copyright and put the work into the public domain with no conditions for reuse. The next license down, the CC BY license, allows users to reuse the material in any medium or format as long as attribution is given to the creator. The remaining licenses all require attribution but have additional conditions. The least permissive license is the BY, non-commercial, no derivatives license. It requires attribution, does not allow commercial uses of the work, and does not permit derivatives or adaptations of the work. You may have seen these licenses on journal articles or publisher websites. The advantage to an author in using a Creative Commons license is that you're making it easy for others to use your work without any administration on your side. In other words, you don't have to provide permission for each use. If you want to be contacted by anyone requesting permission to use your work, then you would not apply a Creative Commons license. That's what it means when you see all rights reserved. In eScholarship, one more note is that if an article that's uploaded to the repository already has a DOI and a Creative Commons license, then we always include those in the record. So moving on now to another great feature in eScholarship, the ability to include supplemental materials, such as data sets, spreadsheets, media files, and in this example, translations. The folks in the RNA Therapeutics Institute who developed the Science Live Outreach program have created a comic coloring book about the COVID mRNA vaccines called mRNA Saves the Day. We disseminate a PDF of this coloring book through eScholarship. What you see on the slide are download thumbnails for the English version, followed by download files for various translations, the Spanish, Chinese, and German. And this is just the beginning of the record. There are actually 5 more translations, and all the files available for download are listed at the top. And then you scroll down to see the abstract and other information. When you submit an item into eScholarship, you are given the option to delay public access to the full text of the files for a specified time, up to 2 years. This is known as an embargo. Embargoes are very useful features. You can deposit your work for additional dissemination, but you have the flexibility to restrict access to downloading until after you've presented at a conference or had a manuscript accepted by a journal. Embargoes can be applied to any item, such as a poster or manuscript. They are commonly used for theses and dissertations, as like the one shown on this slide. The lock on the download button indicates that the full text is embargoed and can't be downloaded by any readers or users until the embargo expires on March 10th, 2024. The thumbnail for all embargoed items displays restricted resource, as shown here. So this slide summarizes the benefits that I have been talking about. In addition, eScholarship provides a permanent link and the ability to export a citation. Because it is managed by the library staff provide all the support for folks who have questions. So before we jump into making a submission, let's do a quick tour on how to navigate eScholarship. The browse menu in the sidebar, as you can see highlighted here, it allows you to browse alphabetically by important fields, and I'll show you a couple of examples. Content in eScholarship is organized hierarchically in collections that are grouped into communities. To view the communities, you would click on the communities link in the sidebar. For example, UMass Chan's 3 schools are organized under UMass Chan Student Research and Publications. On this slide, you can see the subcommunity for the Morningside Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences and its 2 collections, the Dissertations and Theses collection and the Scholarly Publications collection. The Dissertation and Theses collection is the archive for the final version of each thesis after it has been defended. The number in brackets, the 1, 2, 3, 4, that represents the number of items in the collection. The Scholarly Publications collection is for journal articles and other research publications that are co-authored by Morningside students. Another community of importance is the UMass Chan faculty and staff research and publications community. It has 2 collections, a special collection for COVID-19 publications by our authors, and one big sort of catch-all collection for faculty and researcher publications. The browse options in the sidebar also let you browse alphabetically by author names. There are thousands of papers in the repository and thousands of authors, so I use the search box to enter the first few letters of the last name to jump to that part of the author index. The screenshot on the left shows the initial page when you browse by author. In the screenshot in the middle, I've entered Mello, M-E-L-L-O, to find the works of Dr. Craig Mello. The screenshot on the right shows the results of that search. You can see Dr. Mello's name, along with the number of items in the repository, in this case, 57. I would click on his name to access those 57 works. In addition to the browse options, you can also search by keywords and phrases. To search the entire repository, use the search box at the top of every page. Quotation marks are used when you want to search for a phrase. These searches search not only the metadata, such as titles and abstracts, but also the full text of documents in the repository. The search options are pretty robust, including Boolean searching, field searching, and advanced searching. So I would consult the searching hints page in the help menu, which is located further down on the sidebar, which has guidance and examples on how to do some of those searches. You have additional searching and browsing options when you're in a collection in the repository. So this slide shows the collection homepage for the Morningside Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences dissertations and theses collection. In the sidebar, you can browse just the items in this collection, and those browse options are repeated under the title of the collection. You can also search just within this collection by using that search box under the title of the collection. Further down on the home page, the sidebar features a useful feature called Filter by Category. Here you can see a breakdown of documents in the collection by year, by author, by department, document type. Clicking on the View More at the bottom of the author and UMass Chan affiliation filters allows you to browse alphabetically through all the author names and departments. Every collection in the repository displays category filters for some fields. Now that we've navigated around the repository, let's talk a bit about creating an account. You'll need to register for an account and be logged in order to submit materials into eScholarship. The login functionality uses single sign-on to authenticate UMass Chan users, like lots of other apps that we use. You would use the login button in the upper right-hand corner of every page of the repository. After you click that, you would enter your UMass Chan email address and password. Users without a umassmen.edu email address are not able to submit materials directly. After you sign in, you see a My Account section in the sidebar with options for logging out to edit your profile and for submissions. And your name will display in the upper right. The UMass authentication process automatically will time you out with inactivity, but you can just click on login and log back in, and sometimes without having to go through the authentication process. So hopefully you may be wondering whether materials you have would be suitable for eScholarship. So let's talk about that now. We welcome submissions from all of our UMass Chan faculty, postdocs, and staff. Because eScholarship is an archive of scholarship for the medical school, we cannot accept earlier papers when you are not affiliated with UMass Chan. I get that question sometimes. UMass Chan students may submit published journal articles and works such as theses or dissertations that have been approved for inclusion by a faculty member. For works that require approval, we have a separate online permission form that uses the DocuSign electronic signature process. We welcome digital materials in a wide range of formats, not just those listed on the slide, but pretty much any digital format. So what about copyright? Submitting a work to the repository does not transfer your copyright. All it does is grant the library a non-exclusive license to distribute and archive your work. We review all submissions for copyright compliance, and so the contributor must either own the copyright to the work or have the permission of the copyright holder to upload it to the repository. And contributors have to be responsible for making sure that any third-party figures and things like that, that they have the rights to use those for this work prior to any submission. If copyright does not allow, if we discover that copyright does not allow the full text of the work to be distributed, then we can instead link out to the work on the publisher's website. And this is what we call a metadata only record in the repository. So the library, we can help you figure the copyright stuff out. So if you have questions or assistance, you can contact us and we'll work through that. One aspect of copyright that researchers often don't realize is that even if you signed over your copyright to a publisher as part of the publications process for an article, many publishers give authors automatic rights to share a version of the article in an open access institutional repository, such as eScholarship. In other words, depending on the version you want to share, you often may not need to explicitly get permission from the publisher to put it in a repository. The graphic on the slide shows the typical publishing workflow for a journal article, and it's helpful in this context to talk about it. A preprint is the author-created first version of a submitted manuscript before peer review. So most scientific journals will allow you to share this version in a repository anytime. A postprint is the accepted peer-reviewed version of the manuscript before formatting by the publisher. In many cases, these can be shared in a repository. Sometimes the publisher might require an embargo of 6 to 12 months or so. The published version of an article can typically only be shared in a repository if you paid an open access fee to the publisher. Usually these will have a Creative Commons license. Any item with a Creative Commons license can be uploaded to the repository. The Sherpa Romeo website, which is indicated on the slide, is a great resource for this information. You can search by journal title, and it provides a summary of permissions that are normally given to authors as part of publishers' copyright transfer agreements or licenses. And again, the library is happy to assist in determining if materials are eligible to be deposited. Ask us and don't let that hold you back. Now we'll run through the submission process. Here's an outline of that process. We've already logged in, so that step is in green to indicate that it's done. And the full details about what we're doing are available in the submission guidelines document, which is a link from the help menu in the sidebar of eScholarship. So what I'm going to take you through is the self-deposit submission process. However, the library can always deposit on your behalf too. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. So to get started, you would click that submissions link. You're logged in, you would click on that submissions link in the sidebar, and you'll get a page called Submissions and Workflow Tasks, where there's a link right at the top to start a new submission. So let's imagine you're a postdoc who presented a poster at a conference and you'd like to make it available in eScholarship. When you start a new submission, the first thing you need to do is select a collection from the drop-down list. If you're a postdoc, a faculty member, or a staff member, you'll want to select the UMass Chan Faculty and Researcher Publications collection as shown here on the slide. And we'll talk shortly about where you would submit data sets, because that's actually a different collection. And then click Next. The green progress bar at the top of the page shows you the steps in the process. The import step in the submission process allows you to pull in information from PubMed and other sources to populate the submission form with the title, authors, keywords, things like that. It's very handy and saves on data entry. If you had an item that was in PubMed that you wanted to add to our repository, you would select PubMed as the import source and paste the PubMed ID into the search box. That's the easiest way. For items that aren't in PubMed but which have a DOI, you can select the Crossref source as the import source and paste the DOI into the search box. For items that don't have a DOI or don't have a POD, then you'll have to skip the import process. And so that's what we're going to do here for our conference poster. If you don't import from PubMed or Crossref, you fill in the author and other information directly in the submission form. Note the green progress bar on the top, indicating that we're now on the describe step of the submission process. And here you can see I've entered my name, email address, and ORCID ID. There are instructions for each field. For instance, if you have more than one author, what I would do here is click on the add button, and that would clear the author information, and then I could add the name of the second author, etc. The required fields are indicated with an asterisk, and they're also indicated at the end of the submission instructions. So next, you can see here I've selected my department from the UMass Chan affiliation list. If I had co-authors and they were from different departments or one of the schools, it's possible to select multiple items. There's no limit on how many departments or groups or programs you can select here. I've also entered the title of my poster and the date, and also the document type. I've selected poster from the list. Moving further down that submission page, I've entered an abstract, I've entered some keywords, and I've entered the name of the conference where this poster will be presented. These fields are not required, but especially abstract and keywords is really useful in terms of increasing the likelihood that your item will be found in online searches. There's also a funding field if that's applicable for your document, or your poster in this case. The last field on this first page is a notes field where you can enter any other additional information that you think is important. And so from here, you would click next to go to the next page of the submission process, or you can click the save and exit button to save and come back to this work later at any time. It'll just be stored in your account so that you can come back to and resume the submission. Okay. This page is the second page of the describe process. And this is actually, most of the fields here are for use of repository administrators like myself. So you can just actually skip this page, go down to the bottom and click next. So going back to our outline of the submission process, you can see we're almost done, just a few more steps. And the next one is the step to upload your files. Now we were on the upload step as indicated by the green progress bar. Here is where you would upload your primary file and any supplementary files. We prefer PDF format for these, so please convert any Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint documents to PDF before uploading. This is also where you would add an embargo date. In this example, my conference isn't until next month, so I've embargoed this until May 19th when the conference ends. And now I will click next to move to the next step. So now we're on the Creative Commons license step, as indicated by the progress bar. You can choose not to apply a license, so that would be the no Creative Commons license option. But for our example, I do want to use a Creative Commons license, and I want to do the attribution or CC BY license. So I would select Creative Commons from this menu. So all of the Creative Commons licenses require attribution. So my answers to the two questions on this page allow commercial uses of your work and allow modifications of your work, determine which actual Creative Commons license gets selected. So I'm going to click yes for both, and this will indicate a Creative Commons attributions license. The review submission step displays the information you entered or selected. So you can go back and make changes. For instance, if you see a typo, something like that. If all looks good, you can click Next. And finally, this is the last step where you agree to the UMass Chan deposit license, which gives the library the non-exclusive right to retain, reproduce, and distribute your work. So you would click the checkbox at the bottom and then click on Complete Submission. Yay, congratulations. The submission is now complete. So you can either submit another item if you like, or you can go to the submissions page. If you go to the submissions page, your document will be shown under the submissions being reviewed. And this is where it will sit until library staff review and approve it. And then it will display under archive submissions, as shown in the last spot on the slide there. So going back to our outline of the submission process, you've done your steps, and now the ball is in the library's court. This process works basically the same for all of the collections in the repository. There are slight differences. Sometimes the submission form is a little customized. For student works, works that require faculty approval, such as the theses and dissertations, as I mentioned before, there's a separate online permission form that needs to be signed off on first. And there's information about that on the collection homepage if it is pertinent. Now Tess will discuss how data deposit works in eScholarship.
Thank you, Lisa. As Lisa mentioned throughout the presentation, data is another thing that you can put into eScholarship at UMass Chan. There are a few differences, though, with data as opposed to some of the other materials that can be deposited. One of these is that we recommend for the best upload and download experience for yourself and any potential users that you limit your file sizes to 1 GB per file. And you can have many 1 GB files, but we just recommend that each individual file is about 1 GB. We can still deposit and receive larger files. It's just a slower upload download process. And if you are having trouble with that upload, feel free to contact us and we'd be happy to help you with that. Another thing to keep in mind is that we can only accept de-identified data, and data that is going to be public at some point. Lisa mentioned that you can embargo materials, and that goes for data too, but we only accept data that will eventually become public. You can also register data. So if you have your data deposited elsewhere, we can create a metadata record, and you can add links to other sources or add additional files if you need them. Just let us know. The main difference between depositing data and other materials in the repository is that we require a README to accompany your data set, which contains basic information such as authors, description, license, funding, and variable information. And variable information can be provided separately in a data dictionary if desired. And this information is gathered to make the data as reusable as possible. And we have this handy dandy template to help you with that as well. And if you are depositing in eScholarship at UMass Chan, or even considering it, we ask that you can contact us to ensure that we can accommodate the data. We also have example language in our data deposit policy that can be used in your grant application, particularly if you are writing a data management and sharing plan or a data management plan. And this language is also available in DMP tool as well. And for full details about depositing data into eScholarship, please refer to the data deposit policy linked on this slide.
Thanks, Tess. So that's it for today's overview of eScholarship. These are some resources for assistance. So I've mentioned the help menu in the eScholarship sidebar includes links to our submission guidelines, the data deposit policy searching hints, and some other information. If you have questions or need assistance, don't hesitate to send an email to our eScholarship mailbox, or to use the Ask a Librarian option on the library homepage. If you enjoyed today's session, please join us in our upcoming seminar on preprints, which is scheduled for May 25th at noon. You can read more about that workshop and access recordings of some of our previous workshops using the link on the slide. Thank you, everyone. And here's some information about contacting us if you need assistance. Thanks again.